All right, hello, good morning. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be solving linear systems in 3 variables. All right, now what we're going to do before we go about solving these, right, we're going to let our calculator give us the answers first, okay? So the calculator is going to come right out and tell us what value of x, what value of y, and what value of z holds true for each of these equations. Okay, so this is how it works. We're going to create something called a matrix in our calculator. Now, if you look up here, see how we have 3 equations? Okay, so we have 3 rows, and then we have 4 columns, really. We have a column of x's, a column of y's, a column of z's, and a column of numbers. So in your calculator, we're going to create a 3-column by 4-row matrix. All right, so this is how we do it. See where it says matrix above this button right here? Okay, we're going to hit second, and then we're going to hit the matrix button. Now you're going to go over to where it says edit, and you're going to hit enter. Now my calculator already says, see, it says 3 by 4. Yours may not. It may say 1 by 1. If it doesn't, all you're going to do is hit the 3, and then hit enter, and then you're going to hit a 4, and then hit enter, and it'll change it to a 3 by 4 matrix. Now, this is how we determine the numbers that go in the matrix. If you look at this first row, see how we have a 2, a 3, a -1, and a 5? Okay, I'm going to type in a 2, and then hit enter, a 3, and hit enter, a -1, and hit enter, and then a 5, and hit enter. Okay, now the next row says 4, -1, -1, -1. So we're going to type in 4, and then hit enter, -1, and then hit enter, -1, hit enter, -1, and hit enter again. You could hit over. You could hit the over arrow key if you prefer. All right, now this last row has a 1, a 4, a 1, and a 12. So 1, 4, 1, 12. Okay, now we've set up our matrix, okay, with the numbers from number 25. What we want to do now is we want to clear out of the screen. So see above the word mode where it says quit, you're going to hit second and then mode. Okay, now we're going to go back into matrix. So we actually have to go into matrix a total of 3 times. So here's the second time I'm doing it, okay? I'm going to hit second, and then where this button that says matrix, you're going to hit that. And this time we're going to go over to math, and you could either scroll down or it's actually faster to scroll up until you see RREF. Okay, so on that we're going to hit enter. And this is where we go to our matrix for a 3rd and final time. So I'm going to go back to second, and then the button with the matrix on it. And I'm going to hit enter on this first one, right? Because this matrix A, right, choice 1, that's the one we set up already. So I'm going to hit enter. And then when I see this on the screen, I hit enter again. And this tells us our answers, okay? What this tells us is that, see how x is in our first column here? So when we have a 1 in the first column, right, when x is 1, it's equal to 1. See how the y's are in the second column? See how the second column, we have a 1 right here. When y is 1, it's equal to 2. So basically 1x equals 1, or x equals 1, y equals 2, and z equals 3. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, before I get started with this problem, I'm going to make an answer box, okay? I'm going to write out x equals 1, y equals 2, and z equals 3. And the reason why it's important to do this first, right? I know most times we check at the end of a problem, but the reason why I want you to find the answers first is because these are long. I don't want you to go through the whole problem and realize when you get to the end, when you have to check, that these are not what you got. So as long as you have the answers in front of you as you solve one of these problems, you'll know if you're on the right track or not. Okay, so let's go for it. Now, this is what we do. We're going to label our equations with a variable. I usually just label them A, B, C. So this is equation A, this is equation B, and this is equation C. Okay, it's important to label them because whoever's grading your paper, there's a lot of work that's going to be on this page. So you want to make it clear what equation you're using when. And in addition to that, I want you to label your steps because there's going to be, usually there's about 5 steps for each of these. Okay, so step 1. Now, in step 1, what you want to do is you want to line up 2 of the equations. It doesn't matter. You can line up A and B, you can line up A and C, or you can line up B and C. But what you're trying to do is you're trying to get one of the variables to cancel out, either the x's, the y's, or the z's. So for example, I'm going to cancel out the z's because I think this is going to be the easiest way to do it. If I line up equation A and equation C. Do you see how we have a negative z and a positive z? Those will cancel out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put an A here to show that I'm using equation A, and I'm going to write out 2x plus 3y minus z equals negative 5. Positive 5. I'm just copying equation A. And then I decided to use equation C with it, which says x plus 4y plus z equals 12. Okay? And then the reason I chose these two equations is because when we add them together, the z's cancel. All right, so that leaves us with, let's add these together, 3x plus 7y equals 17. Now, we've created a new equation that we're going to have to use, so we want to give that equation a label as well. So I'm going to call that D. Okay, now, step 2 is very important. In step 2, you want to pick a different pair of equations. So we've already used A and C. So we can either use A and B, or we can use B and C. But whichever pair we pick, we have to cancel off the same variable that we did in step 1. So since we canceled off the z's in step 1, you have to cancel off the z's in step 2. Okay, well, I'm going to use equation B and C because, look, those so nicely cancel off for us again. It's not going to happen that it, just always cancels off so nice like this, but in this case, it is. All right, so I'm going to use, in step 2, I'm going to use equation B and C. Okay, so equation B says 4x minus y, that 4 looks like a y, 4x minus y minus z equals negative 1. And then equation C says x plus 4y plus z equals 12. Okay, and when I add them together, again, the z's cancel, which is what we wanted, and it leaves us with 5x plus 3y equals 11. So I've created another equation that we're going to use, so I need to give it another label. Now, we've already used A, B, C, and D, so I'm going to call this one E. All right, now, I'm going to make myself a little more room right here. Okay, so just basically just put the answers up here instead. Now, in step 3, the majority of the time what we're going to do is we're going to line up equations D and E. And we want to try to get either the x's to cancel or the y's to cancel. Now, if you look here, okay, in order to get the x's to cancel, right, a 3x doesn't cancel with a 5x, just like a 7y doesn't cancel with a 3y. So in order to get one of the variables to cancel off, we're going to have to multiply the equation, or both equations, by some number. Now, let's think about it. If we multiplied equation D by 5, wouldn't that become 15x? And if we multiplied equation E by negative 3, wouldn't that become a negative 15x? And wouldn't a positive 15x and a negative 15x cancel off? Okay, so in step 3, let's write out, I'm going to kind of come all the way up here because I'm going to need a lot of room. We still have a few more steps to go. In step 3, I'm going to do 5 times equation D, so put a 5 in front of the D, and we're going to do negative 3 times equation E. Okay, now some of you guys may like to write out, like next to this, 5, and then in parentheses, put equation D, right? And then show that you're distributing, and then kind of rewrite what you're left with. You can do that. Okay, I don't have a lot of room on the screen, and honestly, even on paper, I feel like it sometimes causes a lot of clutter, and there's a lot going on already. So me personally, I like to just take this and distribute it and write it. Take it and distribute it and write it. Take it and distribute it and write it. But that's up to you. If you prefer to put the parentheses, if that helps you to keep yourself organized, then go for it. Okay, so anyway, I'm distributing a 5 to both sides of equation D. Okay, so 5 times 3x is 15x. Then 5 times 7y would be positive 35y. And then don't forget to distribute this 5 to the other side of the equal sign. So 5 times 17 would be 85. Okay, now let's do the same thing with equation E. Negative 3, now we're going down to equation E, times 5 would be negative 15x. Negative 3 times 3 is negative 9y. And then negative 3 times 11 is negative 33. Okay, and let's just combine our like terms. So the x's cancel off, which is what we were looking to happen, right? And then 35y minus 9y would be 26y. And 85 minus 33 is 52. And then to solve for y, just divide both sides by 26. So it leaves us with y equals 2. Now, this is why it was important to find your answers first, because at this point, we're going to know if we're on the right track. Okay, so we got y equals 2. And if we look at the answer box, look, y is equal to 2. So we're doing this correctly. Awesome. Okay, now we're on to step 4. Now, from this point, we already know the y. Okay, we know that y equals 2. Now look at these two equations we form, equation D and equation E. If we were to take the 2 and plug it in for y, either here or here, right? If we know the y is a number, can't we then solve for x? Okay, so it's up to you. You could use either equation D or equation E. I'm going to use equation E. Okay, totally doesn't matter. You'll get the same answer either way. So if I use equation E, okay, it says 5x plus 3y. Now remember, y is equal to 2. So instead of writing 3y, let's write 3 times 2. And then equals 11, okay, equals 11. So I'm just bringing that over here. And then we're just going to solve for x. So since 3 times 2 is 6, we'll have 5x plus 6 equals 11. And then just subtract 6 from both sides of the equation. So that leaves us with 5x equals 5. And when we divide by 5, we wind up getting, I'm going to write it over here because I'm going to need that room on the bottom, x equals 1, right? 5 divided by 5 is 1. And let's look at our answer key. Look at that. We are on the right track, okay? We have the y correct, the x correct. Now we just have to show how we could solve for z. Okay, so step 5. Make sure you're labeling your steps and you're labeling every equation you use. That way, whoever's grading your paper, whether it be Ms. Carter or myself on a test or any math teacher on the Regents, we want to know which equation you're using. Okay, now since we know x and since we know y, we can use any of our original equations to solve for z. Okay, I'm going to use equation C because z is already positive. So basically, if I use this equation, right, I'm going to use equation C. Okay, well, we know that x is equal to 1. So I'm going to replace that x with a 1. I'm going to write 1 plus 4 times, right, 4y. Well, we know that y is equal to 2, so I'm going to replace that y with a 2. And then I can bring down the plus z equals 12. Okay, z is what we're solving for. Okay, so, well, 4 times 2 is 8, and 8 plus 1 is 9, so we'll have 9 plus z equals 12. And then to get z by itself, just subtract 9 from both sides of the equation, and we wind up with z equals 3. Okay, and so if we look back at our answers, look at that. We got them all right. All right, so what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to try number 26 all on your own. I'd like you to first do it in the calculator, and then I'd like you to do it by hand and make sure your answers match up. I mean, I'll record a video. I'll keep recording the video of how I did it in number 26, but remember, there's so many different ways. Like, if, for example, in this question, someone might have canceled out the y's instead of the z's, or someone else might have canceled out the x's. Or instead of using A and C, someone might have used A and B. So there's so many different ways to do it. So, I will record how I did it, but it might not be the exact same way that you did it. All right, so if you recall, the first thing we did was we created a matrix. We went to second and then hit the button that said matrix on top. We go over to edit and hit enter. Now, I already have a 3 and a 4 in there, so I'm just going to hit enter and scroll right past that. Okay, so now my numbers I'm going to enter are 2, 1, negative 1, negative 5. Okay, so 2, 1, negative 1, negative 5. Okay, then the next row says 4, negative 2, 1, 10. So 4, negative 2, 1, and 10. And then finally my last row is going to say 2, 3, 2, 3. So 2, 3, 2, 3. Okay, so now I want to clear out of here, right? I want to quit the screen. So see where it says quit above mode? You're going to hit second mode. We're going to go back into matrix, so second, and then hit the matrix button right here. we're going to go over to math and scroll either up or down until you see RREF. And then we go back to matrix for the third and final time. Hit enter on the first one and hit enter again. And you could see these are going to be our answers, okay? X is going to be 0.5 or 1/2, however you want to write that. Y is going to be -2. And Z is going to be 4. All right, so let's get started. I'm first going to label my equations A, B, and C. Okay, I'm looking ahead, and just like in the last one, I personally am going to cancel out the Z's. I mean, you could cancel out anything you want. You can cancel out the Y's, the X's. It totally doesn't matter, but I'm going to cancel out the Z's again. All right, so I'm going to write out step 1. And I'm going to start off using equation A and B because the Z's so nicely just cancel off again. All right, so equation A says 2x plus y minus z equals -5. Sorry, that's a z. And then equation B says 4x minus 2y plus z equals 10. Okay, so when we add these together, we get 6x minus y, the z's cancel, and then equals 5. Okay, so I'm going to call that equation D. Okay, now step 2. In step 2, I know I have to cancel off the same exact variable. I have to cancel off the z's again. Okay, so it's up to you. I'm going to use equation A and equation C, but what you'll notice is, look, the z's don't cancel. But if this is a positive 2z, if I multiply equation A by 2, right, won't this become a negative 2z, and then they'll cancel off? So I'm going to do 2 times equation A, and we're also going to use equation C. Again, if you like to do this, if you like to do 2 times and then put equation A in parentheses, right, and show that you're distributing and then rewrite it again and, combine like terms, you can do that. I personally don't like to do that just because it creates a lot of clutter on the screen for me or on my paper. And, you can just distribute just as easily by taking your finger and going up to the equation, right? So let's do that. 2 times 2x is 4x. 2 times y is 2y. 2 times negative z is negative 2z. And then 2 times -5 is -10. Okay, and then equation C I'm just leaving alone. So I'm just going to rewrite that exactly like I see it. Okay, and then when we add these together, we wind up with 6x plus 5y. These cancel, so equals -7. And since I created a new equation, I'm going to call that E. All right, now, I'm going to start step 3 all the way up here, just so I have room for everything. So in step 3, we know we're going to line up those 2 equations we just made, right? Equation D and E. Now, let's see if anything just cancels off right away when we line them up. Well, the x's unfortunately don't, and the y's unfortunately don't. So we can just multiply. If you want to get, let's say, the y's to cancel off, right, you can multiply equation D by 5. Or if you want to get the x's to cancel off, you can multiply either one of these equations by a -1. All right, I'm going to multiply equation D by -1. Okay, so let's distribute. -1 times 6 is -6. -1 times -y is +y. And you should be dragging your finger to distribute, just like I'm doing, so you don't miss anything. Okay, you don't want to miss distributing to the right-hand side of the equation. Just like if you had parentheses, right? You would use your finger or you draw an arc and distribute. -1 times 5 is -5. And I'm going to leave equation E just as it is. And when we add these together, the x's cancel, so we get 6y equals -12. And when we divide by 6, we get y equals -2. Okay, I'm going to just kind of, emphasize that as one of our solutions, but look, that matches up with the answer box, so we are on the right track. Okay, so now step 4, now that we know that y is equal to -2, we can go back to either one of these 2 equations, right, D or E, because they both contain a y. So we can go back to either one of these two equations and solve for x. Okay, so I'm going to use equation D. So equation D says 6x, and then it says minus. Now the y is negative 2. So if you think about it, if you have minus a negative 2, isn't that the same thing as just plus 2, right? A negative times negative is a positive. And then I'm going to take this equals 5 and bring it right over. Okay, so we really have, I'm going to erase this. We don't need two signs in a row, right? We really have 6x plus 2 equals 5. All right, so to finish solving, we would subtract 2 from both sides of the equation. So we get 6x equals 3. And then when you divide by 6, I'm just going to put my answer off to the side here. 3 divided by 6 simplifies to 1/2, which matches up with the answer box, right? If you look at the top of the page, see where it says x equals 1/2? All right, so now we just have to solve for z. So in step 5, we're solving for z, and we know we can use any one of the 3 original equations. Okay, I'm going to use equation B because we have a positive z. There's no number in front of it. I think that's going to be the easiest. Okay, so equation B says 4x, so 4 times, well, we know x is 1/2, so 4 times 1/2, and then minus 2 times y, which is negative 2, plus z equals 10. All right, so 4 times 1/2. Half of 4 is 2. And then negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4. And I'll bring down the plus z equals 10. Okay, so 2 plus 4 is 6, so we have 6 plus z equals 10. And then when we subtract 6 from both sides of the equation, we wind up with z equals 4. Okay, and again, I just want to remind you that it's important to find the answers before doing the problem, because you don't want to get all the way to the end of the problem and realize you made a mistake. As soon as you solve for that first variable, you'll know if you're on the right track or not. And if you're not, if you made a mistake, that's okay. Just go back and find the mistake. Okay, if you're in a lab class or a regular class, you are done for today. And if you're in the honors class, please try number 27 on your own and check your work with the answer key. Although honestly, if you get the answers in the calculator and get it to match up by hand, you'll know whether you got it right or wrong.